Early Doomsday shell+urban cool text core, later special ability to fight against zombie army invincible flow. In August 2023, despite opposition from the international community, Japan insisted on discharging nuclear wastewater into the sea, seriously affecting global ecological security. Scientists from various countries have expressed that this move will lead to unpredictable catastrophic consequences in human history. In September 2024, a large number of marine organisms with unknown causes of death were discovered in coastal areas of various countries, with multiple nuclear elements detected in their bodies exceeding the normal dose limit by 10,000 times. In April 2026, there were reports of the world's first zombie attack on humans in Japan. Since then, the zombie crisis has spread at an astonishing speed worldwide, with the number of infections and deaths continuing to increase. In October 2029, with the failure of the United States' plan to use nuclear weapons to extensively eliminate zombies, the war between humans and zombies entered a passive defense phase. In February 2032, as Iceland, the last country in the world, declared a state of anarchy due to the zombie crisis, countries around the world were completely reduced to history. Experts estimated that there were approximately 7 billion living zombies worldwide, with less than 100 million remaining humans, and the fate of humanity was in jeopardy. In December 2033, Guangsheng arrived at Guangsheng City. After dealing with zombies in the ruins for many years, he thought that entering such a sheltered human city would allow him to live a stable life with peace of mind. However, in this post-apocalyptic world, humans are a more dangerous existence than zombies, and the gears of fate also began to rotate at this moment. Urban, Shuangwen, Apocalypse, Zombies, Survival, Notre Dame. Chapter 1. People are more dangerous than zombies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the ruins of the city buried in yellow sand, a withered zombie is wandering aimlessly, with several round and plump maggots struggling to crawl out of its murky eyes. In this apocalypse, perhaps only flies and their descendants have truly gained freedom. Looking at the zombie in the distance, Guangsheng nodded to Wang Qian beside him. There are only a few zombies in this desert ruins, and these guys have poor vision. As long as they don't make too much noise, the two of them can easily pass through this place. In 2033 AD, it has been 7 years since the global outbreak of the zombie crisis. In the early stages of the crisis, many countries chose to use nuclear weapons to deal with zombies after conventional military measures were ineffective, but they did not expect these zombies to be stronger than cockroaches in the sewer. Nuclear weapons not only failed to eliminate too many zombies, but also turned the already scarce land of humanity into a nuclear-contaminated area. After the ecosystem was completely destroyed, storms swept through and sandstorms ravaged, and countless cities eventually disappeared into the vast yellow sand. For example, in the lifeless ruins under our feet at this moment, who could have thought that this was once the busiest city in western China? Half an hour later, the two of them escaped from the scorching desert and arrived at the ruins of a rooftop that still existed. We can't walk anymore, let's take a break for a while. Wang Qian, with a disheveled face, sat panting heavily on the ground, taking off the rags on her body and then taking out a water bottle from her backpack to drink heavily. Looking at the amount of water in the other person's bottle and her drinking method, Guangsheng frowned slightly, but did not say anything. The two of them were not relatives, and I only met her by chance 3 days ago. After learning that she also planned to go to the legendary human gathering area of Guangsheng City, I agreed to go with her. As for whether she can persist until Guangsheng City, I don't care, even if she can't find any supplies after drinking water, and she dies of thirst, it has nothing to do with me. In today's world, people who enjoy meddling may not live long. Didn't you say from the map that Guangsheng City is near here? Why do we only see ruins nearby and have no trace of any survivors gathering areas? After taking 2 sips, Wang Qian put away the water bottle with a hint of suspicion in her eyes. Guangsheng took off the rags on his body and took out the old map from his backpack to study. According to the location marked on the map, Guangsheng City should be located nearby, but they did not find anything along the way, so it seems that the annotation on this map is not so accurate. After putting away the map, he took out his watch from his pocket and looked at the time. Now we have no other clues besides this map, so we can only continue to search. It's 11 o'clock in the morning, and we will continue to depart in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, after confirming that there were still only a few scattered zombies nearby, he and the woman put on rags and continued on. Zombies have no vision, but their sense of smell and hearing are very sensitive. To deal with hearing, as long as you don't make too much noise, as for the sense of smell, people have come up with a solution, which is to wipe out the zombies and spread their flesh and blood on a piece of rag, and wait until the rag dries and drapes over their bodies. Help! Just as the two continued to search for Guangsheng City, a female cry for help suddenly came from a distance. Carefully following the sound, a woman in her 30s was seen with one leg stuck on the ground and unable to move. A zombie was slowly approaching her next to her. The woman kept calling for help in a frightened voice with a crying tone. Little did she know that the more she shouted, the faster she died. Let's go save her quickly. Wang Qian plans to come forward and rescue. But the expressionless Pei Yuansheng remained unmoved. He could tell at a glance that the woman had a problem. This ruins is not suitable as a campsite. If there were any living people, they would definitely be passing travelers like the two of them, but they didn't see any luggage around them, and she was so clean that she didn't look like she had traveled a long distance. There is a high probability of fraud. Don't you save her. Previously, the Global Survival Guide stated that only by uniting and helping each other can surviving humans possibly overcome the most serious crisis in human history. If you want to die, go save it. In this world, zombies are very dangerous, and people are more dangerous than zombies. After hesitating for a while, Wang Qian finally chose to listen to Pei Yuansheng's words, ignoring the woman's plea for help and preparing to leave with him. But at this moment, the woman in the distance suddenly shouted again. I am an investigation team member who came out of Guangsheng City to search for supplies. Please help me, and I will have a heavy thank you afterwards. Wang Qian immediately stopped excitedly. She's from Guangsheng City, can't we find Guangsheng City if we save her? Pei Yuansheng was half convinced and half skeptical. Based on the clues, it appears that Guangsheng City is nearby. The woman may indeed be an investigation team member who came out of Guangsheng City to search for supplies. If that's the case, then the suspicion on her body would be reasonable. But in case just as Pei Yuansheng hesitated, Wang Qian had already made up her mind to go and rescue her. Pei Yuansheng, who didn't have time to think much, could only hold on to her. I'll go save her, you stay put and don't go there. If there's any problem, leave immediately. Then he cautiously approached the woman. The woman who saw someone approaching and her leg got stuck immediately exclaimed excitedly. Help me, please help me quickly. Be quiet, don't bring in other zombies too. Pei Yuansheng picked up a stone from the ground and smashed it hard behind the zombie. Pwai, accompanied by the crisp sound of skull cracking, a thick black-brown liquid instantly splashed onto the ground, and the zombie also fell beside the woman. The woman breathed a sigh of relief and thanked Pei Yuansheng for his kindness. Pei Yuansheng glanced at her leg and found that she had been tripped by concrete stones and steel bars in the ruins, so he prepared to move the stones to help her escape. But at this moment, a faint sound came from behind him. Although the voice was light, Pei Yuansheng could hear it very well. Damn it, I fell for it. Without any hesitation, he almost simultaneously drew a dagger from his pants and waved it towards his back. A man holding a sharp blade who had just crawled out of the disguise of the rubble was cut in the throat by him. Blood gushed out from the incision in the man's neck like spring water. Before the man could react, he covered his neck in pain and fell to the ground. At the same time, another man also crawled out of the ruins, with his crossbow aimed directly at Pei Yuansheng. Pei Yuansheng dodged sideways, and the crossbow and arrow brushed against his nose as he flew over. He threw the dagger at the opponent, with the sharp dagger precisely inserted into the man's heart. Before the man could shoot a second arrow, he fell straight to the ground. "Don't move." At this moment, a cold and hard object pressed against the back of Pei Yuanqing's head. With this special touch, he knew it was the muzzle of a rifle. Even if you're fast, you can't be as fast as a bullet in a gun. He could only raise his hand to surrender. "Okay, I surrender." Before he could finish speaking, his head was smashed hard by someone, and then his eyes turned black and he lost consciousness. Chapter 2. Cannibals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With the sharp pain in his body and the call in his ear, Pei Yuanqing slowly opened his eyes. "I am in a dark basement, with my limbs locked by iron chains, and the other end of the chain is hanging from a steel hook on the wall. It seems impossible to break free." "You finally woke up. I thought you were beaten to death by them." Wang Qian's voice rang in his ear, and Pei Yuanqing turned around to find that she was also tied here. Pei Yuanqing frowned. "How did you get caught too? Didn't I let you run away when you saw the danger?" Wang Qian looked aggrieved. "I also wanted to run, but before I could run for 2 steps, 2 people rushed out around and caught me." Seeing him silent, Wang Qian lowered her head. "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. If it weren't for my insistence on saving people, we wouldn't have been caught." Pei Yuanqing still remained silent. There is no point in holding accountable now, let alone blaming oneself for not having a firm attitude. Otherwise, even if caught, only Wang Qian would have been arrested, so I don't blame her. "It's all my fault, it's my own fault." Wang Qian couldn't help but burst into tears as she spoke. "Are we going to die?" Although she cried bitterly and was pitiful, Pei Yuanqing paid no attention. "If you continue to cry, it's really hard to escape death." He observed the situation as he spoke. The basement has a large area, and their location is similar to a dungeon. In addition to the hooks on the wall, more than 10 steel bars are used to create a sturdy fence on the opposite side. On the ground of this dungeon, there are scattered brown patches of varying shades, which should be dried up old blood. They are obviously not the first batch of guests here, which means their situation is even more dangerous. After all, this professional gang, combined with indestructible facilities, is almost impossible for the two to fly. At this moment, a sound of footsteps could be heard in the distance, followed by 3 men and 1 woman entering the dungeon. The woman in charge was the one who pretended to ask for help before. "Wake up." Seeing Pei Yuanqing wake up, the woman sat on a metal bed outside the fence, with a strange look in her eyes. "I can't tell, you're quite capable of killing the 2 of us with just 1 dagger." Pei Yuanqing's heart sank, knowing that something was not good. At this moment, he realized that all 4 of them had obvious redness in their eyes, and he was not unfamiliar with this symptom. After the global outbreak of the zombie crisis, food shortage has become a common problem faced by everyone. Unable to find food, many people were starving to death, and Pei Yuanqing witnessed with his own eyes the tragic scene of starving people everywhere. But there are also people who have broken through the bottom line of humanity under the torment of hunger and choose to cannibalize each other. The characteristic of long-term consumption of human flesh is the redness of congested eyes. As expected, the woman walked up to the fence and stared at Pei Yuanqing for a few seconds before shifting her gaze to Wang Qian. Her eyes immediately flashed with a greedy and bloodthirsty gaze like that of a wild beast. Not only her, but also the 3 men beside her, as if Wang Qian in front of them was not of the same kind, but a delicious and juicy snowflake beef. "What do you want to do?" Pei Yuanqing, who was trying to delay time, knowingly asked. The woman gave a fierce smile. "Do you know what the most delicious food in the world is?" Pei Yuanqing shook his head. "It's human flesh, especially the flesh of young girls like her. Eating it raw is fresh, tender, juicy, smooth, and chewy, and when cooked, it melts into the mouth and leaves an endless aftertaste. If it weren't for the zombie crisis outbreak, I probably wouldn't have had the chance to experience this superior ingredient in my life. As she spoke, the woman closed her eyes and licked her lips with her tongue, with an expression of still wanting. Wang Qian was frightened and her face turned pale as death. Don't come over. You perverts, don't come over. Her words clearly had no meaning. Two men opened the fence door and walked towards her. Despite her struggling hard, there was a huge disparity in strength between the two. She was forcibly dragged out of the dungeon and placed on the metal bed. During this process, she was scared out of her wits and her feces and urine flowed freely. The basement immediately filled with a pungent odor. But these cannibals paid no attention to it. Three men playfully stripped off Wang Qian's clothes and locked her naked on the metal bed. At this moment, she was like a plucked chicken, a scaled fish, and her fate was only to be slaughtered. However, even with such a strong desire for survival, she still did not give up. She screamed frantically for mercy and begged for help from Pei Yuansheng. Please don't kill me. As long as you don't kill me, I'm willing to do anything for you. I can be your slave, I can be your dog. Help me. Yuansheng, please help me. I don't want to die. Please, I don't want to die yet. Faced with Wang Qian's collapse, Pei Yuansheng remained expressionless, and the woman in charge was somewhat surprised. Why, aren't you begging for her mercy? I'm not related to her, let alone can you let her go even if I beg for mercy. I just want to know one thing now. The woman shrugged her shoulders. You say. Do you really know where Guangsheng City is? Of course, Guangsheng City is located 100 kilometers southwest of here. Since you know the location of Guangsheng City, why don't you go? The woman squinted her eyes and smiled. This is already the end of the world, and the city of Guangsheng still looks like it was before the crisis. Living there is limited everywhere, let alone eating. Ah! Wang Qian interrupted the woman's words with a mournful scream. A man with a pig-killing knife stabbed her in the abdomen and made a cut. Then, he forcefully reached into her abdomen and groped upwards, while blood flowed continuously from the wound. Soon, the metal bed and the ground turned red. A few seconds later, the man pulled hard and pulled out a heart that was still slightly trembling, emitting heat. Wang Qian also completely lost her reaction. Ahem. Pei Yuansheng could no longer bear it, his stomach churned and he vomited loudly, and then he fell on his vomit. Seeing him being scared and vomiting, or even fainting, three men in the distance burst into laughter, while the woman disdainfully raised the corners of her mouth and turned to walk towards the metal bed. Hurry up and slice your heart while it's hot. The most delicious thing on this woman's body cannot be wasted. It wasn't until the four of them were satisfied with the fresh heart stabbing that they realized Pei Yuansheng was still lying motionless. One of the men chuckled. What a coward. The other man continued, saying. Do you think this guy will be scared to death? The remaining man immediately looked at the woman. Sister, what do you want to do? The woman wiped the bloodstain from the corner of her mouth. You go over and check it out. Chapter 3. Purely wanting to kill you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The man didn't think much and nodded before walking towards Pei Yuansheng in the dungeon. Thinking of Pei Yuansheng's easy killing of the two before, the woman, who was not at ease, said again. Be careful. Don't worry, big sister. This guy's limbs are all tied up, and we've searched before, so there won't be anything wrong. The man walked up to Pei Yuansheng and kicked his head with his foot, still motionless. Aren't you really scared to death? The man kicked Pei Yuansheng over and found that he was vomiting all over his face. Although his eyes were open, they were dull and unresponsive, as if he had really been scared to death. The man let go of his guard and crouched down to touch his carotid artery with his hand. As soon as he put his hand on it, the powerful beating of the carotid artery instantly hit his finger. Before he could react, Pei Yuansheng's dim eyes suddenly flashed a cold light, and he quickly bounced off the ground with lightning speed, using the chain in his hand to strangle the man's neck. This sudden change caught everyone off guard, and the man who was held by Pei Yuansheng's neck was even more eager to break free. But as soon as he moved, Pei Yuansheng tugged on the chain with all his might, causing the man's brain to instantly become ischemic and his body to soften, kneeling on the ground. The remaining two men only realized when one of them grabbed the pig-killing knife at hand and charged towards Pei Yuansheng. Seeing the pig-killing knife stab him, Pei Yuansheng pulled the man he was holding up and the blade instantly penetrated the man's chest. Ah! The man let out a scream, and the person holding the knife was startled. Pei Yuansheng took the opportunity to punch the person in the face and pushed them back a few steps away. Bang 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 bang. Almost at the same time, gunshots rang out at the scene, and the man outside the dungeon grabbed a rifle and aimed it at Pei Yuansheng, pulling the trigger. But his move was already noticed by Pei Yuansheng. Just a second before the opponent fired, he hid behind the meat shield and raised his hand to reveal the chain that bound his left hand. With a loud bang, the bullet just broke the chain, and the man holding a pig-killing knife rushed forward again. Pei Yuansheng, who had escaped with her left hand, was not afraid and grabbed the other person's wrist with a move to avoid the blade. She pulled the other person's knife and fiercely stabbed the man who was entangled in the chain's neck. After stabbing several times, the man's chest became a hornet's nest, bleeding profusely. So Pei Yuansheng released the bleeding guy and instead wrapped a chain around the neck of the person holding the knife, while grabbing his pig-killing knife and throwing it fiercely at the person holding the gun. Whoosh whoosh. After spinning a few times in the air, the pig-killing knife accurately penetrated the chest of the last man, and the man holding the gun received the boxed meal in this way. What? In just over 10 seconds, all three subordinates had already been solved by Pei Yuansheng, and the remaining woman panicked. Without much time to think, she picked up the gun on the ground and aimed it at Pei Yuansheng, firing all the bullets on the person who was holding the knife at the beginning. Damn it! Seeing that the situation was not good, the woman turned around and ran, while Pei Yuansheng groped around on these two dead people and successfully found the key. After unlocking the chain, he walked out of the dungeon expressionlessly. On the metal platform, Wang Qian's naked and pale body had turned cold. After a few seconds of solemn silence, Pei Yuansheng helped her close her eyes and then pulled out the pig-killing knife from the corpse under her feet and chased after the woman's escape path. Damn! What the hell is that, his mother monster? At this moment, the frightened woman was still desperately running away, but the basement she was in was quite large, and they had previously relied on robbing and killing passing travelers to hoard a large amount of supplies, so the ground was full of debris that they couldn't run fast. Unexpectedly, she tripped over a backpack on the ground, causing her already panicked body to lose balance and fall to the ground with a single thrust. And this is exactly Wang Qian's backpack. The intense pain made her gasp for breath and unable to move for a moment, while the footsteps behind her, like a fierce ghost, gradually approached. Finally, the footsteps stopped behind her. The woman looked back trembling and saw Pei Yuansheng looking at her expressionlessly. Go to hell. The frightened woman grabbed the gun at hand and prepared to shoot, but before she could even aim at Pei Yuansheng, she threw out her pig-killing knife again. The woman instinctively used her hand to block the pig-killing knife and inserted it into her arm. Although she dodged the fatal blow, the pain caused her gun to be released directly. At this moment, she could no longer pose any threat. Pei Yuansheng came to her and, amidst the woman's constant pleading, he pulled out the knife inserted into her arm. Please. Don't kill me. As long as you spare my life. I am willing to do anything. I can give you all the supplies here. The woman's face was pale and incoherent, just like Wang Qian before her death. However, Pei Yuansheng remained unresponsive and silently aimed his knife at her heart. The woman forced out a smile, but it was even uglier than crying. Don't you want to go to Guangsheng City? I can show you the way. Didn't you say you're not related to that woman? In that case, we have no grudges between us. You don't need to kill me. You're right, she and I are really not related, and I don't intend to avenge her either. Pei Yuansheng suddenly spoke up. The woman was first taken aback, then delighted. So you're willing to? Puff. With the sound of her body being pierced, the woman with severe chest pain lowered her head and realized that the sharp knife had completely penetrated her heart. I just wanted to kill you. Pei Yuansheng twisted his hand as he grabbed the knife, causing the woman's heart to instantly shatter in half inside her body. After solving the last person, Pei Yuansheng's suspended heart finally calmed down. A strong sense of fatigue and lingering pain hit him in an instant, and he collapsed on the ground. There were still many things to deal with, and after taking a break, he struggled to get up from the ground. After a brief search in the basement, he gained a general understanding of the situation here. For humans, the most important supplies in this post-apocalyptic era are food and water. There is indeed a lot of food in this basement, but looking at these dried meat, pickled meat, cold and fresh meat, as well as some limbs, broken arms, and internal organs that can still be seen from their sources, he has no appetite. Fortunately, the backpacks of myself and Wang Qian were brought back by these cannibals, and the food stored inside was enough for him to eat for 5 days. In addition, he also found several unopened barrels of drinking water in the basement, and calculated that there were a total of 10 liters, which was at least enough for a week. And the biggest gain was that he found a scooter in the basement. In addition to the motorcycle itself being fully fueled, he also found about 5 liters of supplementary fuel, which means the next journey does not require difficult walking on both legs. It was already 8 p.m. and the sky outside was pitch black. Pei Yuansheng decided to rest in the basement for the night and set off early tomorrow morning. He dragged the bodies of all 4 cannibals into the dungeon, and then threw in the meat and limbs found in the basement. Finally, he stood on the metal bed, looking at Wang Qian's completely cold body. After a long silence, he also carried her into the dungeon and finally locked the door before going back to sleep. Although he missed death several times on this day, it was the best night he had slept in the open air for months, sleeping until 7 a.m. the next morning. After waking up, he packed the necessary supplies and put them on the motorcycle, then came to the dungeon with supplementary fuel. In today's apocalypse, after a person dies, the body often has only 2 outcomes. Either turn into zombies, or turn into food for zombies. Either way, it's not a good thing for surviving humans. After pouring some fuel onto the body, Pei Yuansheng lit the fire. Tiny flames instantly ignite upon touching bodies soaked in fuel, and massive flames engulf these sinful or kind bodies. Chapter 4. Entering Guangsheng City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. According to the directions spoken by the woman among the cannibals before, Pei Yuansheng drove his motorcycle towards the southwest. Although motorcycles no longer require hiking, riding on this ruins-filled old city site is not an easy task. He must try to avoid the scattered zombies around him as much as possible. Although a few alone may not pose a great threat to him, once the number of zombies increases, the threat will increase exponentially. Once surrounded by a large number of zombies, it is difficult for anyone to escape. In addition, he also needs to pay attention to the sharp edges of broken bricks and tiles, as well as possible broken steel bars. Once the tire is punctured, this motorcycle is equivalent to being scrapped. In addition, the displacement of this pedal is very small, so his speed is not fast. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. Apart from finding a place to stay overnight at night, Pei Yuansheng almost kept moving forward during the day. During this process, he used up the fuel in the motorcycle's fuel tank, and the refilled fuel poured in was almost bottomed out. The fuel gauge indicator light kept flashing non-stop. I followed the woman's instructions and headed southwest for over 100 kilometers, but Guangsheng City remained nowhere to be seen, surrounded by endless ruins and deserts. Did that woman deceive herself? Guangsheng City is not even here, or does it simply not exist as such a paradise? Everything is just a rumor born out of people's imagination. The house leak happened to be accompanied by continuous rain, and the motorcycle engine let out a whimpering sound like a human lamp running dry. Then it turned off, and no matter how much Pei Yuanqing started it, it couldn't start. His mother. Pei Yuan was so angry that he kicked the motorcycle over and vented all his anger on the car. After venting, he calmed down. Although the car was gone, he had to continue walking on the road ahead. If he couldn't grit his teeth and move forward in this damn world, death was the only thing waiting for him. So he gathered the remaining supplies in a backpack and continued on his journey with it. This walk lasted for several hours, and as the sky gradually darkened, it was 5:30 p.m. in the evening. Today's itinerary can only come to an end here. I have to find a place to stay late at night, and the view is not good at night. It is very dangerous to drive in this situation, and even a slight mistake can cause injury. Once the zombie smells blood, it will eventually be difficult to escape. While searching for a place to stay, Pei Yuanqing accidentally looked up and suddenly noticed that the distant sky seemed somewhat unusual. Thinking that there was still some time until it was completely dark, he accelerated his speed and rushed towards that direction. As he kept getting closer, his inner curiosity gradually turned into doubt, then from doubt to excitement, and even the final ecstasy. This is actually a tall city wall, and the closer you get to the wall, the more majestic and spectacular you become. In the end, as night fell, he arrived at the bottom of this city wall and found that it was 10 meters high and so vast that it could not be seen at a glance, with 3 large characters written on top of it. Guangsheng City. Have you finally found Guangsheng City? Great! Pei Yuanqing was so excited that he shouted loudly. As a result, several figures suddenly appeared above the city wall, and then the black muzzle poked out from the shooting hole on the wall. Seeing the situation not going well, he immediately shouted. Don't shoot, I'm not a zombie, I'm a living person. In the battle room of the city wall, a squad leader yawned and lazily picked up the walkie-talkie on the table, saying, Command Center, we are in North Wall Zone 2 and we have found survivors outside the city. More than 10 seconds later, a sound sounded from the horn on the city wall. Throw away your weapon, then stand still and don't move around. There will be a car coming to pick you up later. If you have any abnormal behavior, we will shoot immediately. Pei Yuanqing immediately followed suit, and a few minutes later a jeep carrying machine guns drove over under the cover of night. Immediately after, 4 people jumped out of the car, 2 of whom were fully armed with guns, all of which were military standard firearms. It was a world of difference from the guns made by the previous cannibals using steel pipes and wooden boards. And the other 2 were epidemic prevention personnel wearing protective suits. One of them shone a flashlight on Pei Yuanqing, while the other stripped him naked and carefully examined his body. After confirming that there were no infected wounds, the epidemic prevention personnel nodded at the 2 soldiers holding guns. Then, the 4 of them took Pei Yuanqing into the car, and the jeep fell off and quickly drove away without caring about the few zombies slowly approaching nearby. More than 10 minutes later, Pei Yuanqing entered the city, and at this moment, his heart was still extremely excited. I have finally arrived at Guangsheng City and no longer need to live the days of hiding in the ruins and zombies. As the car came to a stop, he was taken off the car by 4 people. After calming down, he finally spoke up and asked. Where are we going? You need to go to the Biochemical Epidemic Prevention Center for a 3-day quarantine observation, during which you will be checked and confirmed to have no problems before being released. The response from the epidemic prevention personnel stunned Pei Yuanqing. Didn't you check just now? I'm not infected, I'm a normal person. That's just a preliminary visual inspection. As for whether you have been infected or not, whether you are a normal person is not up to us. We need to rely on the test results to prove it. Upon hearing this, Pei Yuanqing originally wanted to ask the other party what to do if someone was found to be infected. However, seeing the guns constantly aimed at him in the hands of those two armed personnel, he eventually gave up this idea. After passing through several indoor corridors, he was led into a room. The facilities in the room are very simple, including a bed, a sink, and a toilet. The walls around the room are made of fully transparent tempered glass, so living here has no privacy to speak of. But for Pei Yuanqing, who had been wandering in the ruins of the apocalypse for several years, such conditions had already satisfied him, so he went straight to bed and fell asleep. The next day, Pei Yuanqing was awakened by the loudspeaker in the room. According to the requirements of the epidemic prevention personnel, he came to the wall and extended his arm through a circular hole in the wall for the other party to collect blood. After collecting blood, the other party stuffed 3 loaves of bread into this round hole, and this was his food for the day. These days lasted for 3 consecutive days, during which he was taken out for X-ray examination in addition to blood collection. After everything passed, he was finally released. On the day of his release from quarantine, a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes accompanied him out of the Biochemical Epidemic Prevention Center. At the entrance, the other party placed a flyer in his hand and said in broken Chinese, "Welcome Mr. Pei to Guangsheng City. I hope you can have a happy time in the city." Pei Yuanqing was not surprised by this. After the zombie crisis broke out globally, people from all over the world fled to various places, and there were inevitably foreigners on this land of China. Thank you very much. After thanking the other party, Pei Yuanqing left here with a flyer, ready to start his new life. Chapter 5. Heavenly Price City Entry Fee. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Pei Yuanqing walked out of the entrance of the Biochemical Epidemic Prevention Center, the sight in front of him immediately stunned him. The bustling traffic, bustling pedestrians, lush roadside trees, and bustling shops along the street. All kinds of sounds and visuals converge to create a lively and bustling urban scene. If in the past, such scenes could be seen everywhere and there was nothing special about them. Since the zombie crisis broke out globally, the whole world has become a scene of apocalypse, with desolation and ruin being the main color scheme. This lively and extraordinary past scene only exists in people's memories, at least Pei Yuanqing himself has not seen it for 5 or 6 years. But now, such a scene once again appeared in front of him, which made him a bit uncomfortable for a while. He even had a dreamlike feeling. Is the zombie crisis just a nightmare of sleeping on the street in the afternoon? But when he saw the flyer in his hand, he realized that all of this was not a dream. He was still in the apocalypse, but Guangsheng City was just a paradise in the apocalypse. This flyer is actually a city entry notice, which details some things that people outside the city need to do when entering the city to live. Firstly, it is necessary to enter the Biochemical Epidemic Prevention Center for strict inspection. Only after ruling out the possibility of being infected by zombies can one truly enter the city. Within 3 days after leaving the Biochemical Epidemic Prevention Center, one must go to the Identity Bureau to apply for a resident registration certificate in Guangsheng City. Only after obtaining the resident registration certificate of Guangsheng City can one be a qualified resident of Guangsheng City, otherwise they will be considered a black household. Once a black household is found, it can be fined and detained, and in severe cases, expelled from the city. Applying for a resident registration certificate is not an easy task, and the most important thing is to pay a substantial entry fee. The currency circulating within Guangsheng City is the unique Guanyuan, and the entry fee is 10,000 Guanyuan per person. Pei Yuanqing frowned slightly. Since the outbreak of the zombie crisis and the end of the world, currencies of various countries have rapidly depreciated, ultimately becoming a pile of toilet paper. Besides precious metals such as gold and silver, there are only food and water left, as well as hard currency such as tobacco, alcohol, and drugs that are valuable and can be used for trading. In recent years, I have wandered around the world and collected a lot of gold, but I don't know how much Guanyuan these things can be exchanged for. So he stopped a passerby and inquired about the price of gold. The jewelry gold in our Guangsheng city gold store is about 120 yuan per gram, but a portion of it is for manual labor. The price of pure gold is about 100 yuan per gram, but if you want to exchange gold for money, you may only be able to exchange about 90 yuan per gram. 1 gram of 90. Although mentally prepared, Pei Yuansheng was still surprised to hear this number. So, 10,000 guan yuan is worth 1,100 grams of gold. Do you mean the entry fee to be paid for applying for a registration certificate? The passerby smiled slightly. At the beginning, we didn't receive the city fee at all. With the increase of the number of people in the city, we slowly collected the money. Now there may be too many people in the city, and the city fee will rise. But you survivors who live in Guangsheng don't need to worry about hiding all day long, so the money won't be lost. After speaking correctly, he left conveniently, while Pei Yuansheng reached into his pocket and touched his gold, which was about 3 pounds in weight. Although the entry fee is indeed quite substantial, there should still be some remaining after payment. So he decided to find a gold shop to exchange the gold in his hand for guan yuan, and then went to apply for the registration certificate. After walking along the street for a while, he saw a gold shop with a sign indicating the business of purchasing gold. Do you accept gold here? After entering the store, Pei Yuansheng came straight to the point. The boss is a middle-aged bald man, and upon hearing this, he immediately smiled and said, "Accept, of course accept. What price?" 1 gram 90.2, of course it depends on the purity and quality of your gold. So Pei Yuansheng took out a slightly rough gold bar, which he had melted from the gold jewelry he had obtained from the zombies for many years. Several times, he almost got bitten by the zombies, which can be said to be the savings he had exchanged for his life. The bald boss looked carefully. The quality is indeed decent, but you're a bit rough after all. I'll take 1 gram of 90. Thinking that the passerby had just said this price, Pei Yuansheng didn't think much. Okay, I'll sell. Just as he was about to take out the remaining 2 gold bars, the bald boss suddenly said, "By the way, take out your resident registration certificate and I'll take note of it." Pei Yuansheng was taken aback. Registration certificate. I haven't processed it yet. You didn't apply for a registration certificate. The boss's face changed slightly, and a greedy gaze unique to unscrupulous merchants flashed in his eyes. If you don't have a registration certificate, I can only give you a maximum of 50 for this gram. Pei Yuansheng's face darkened. Are you fooling me? The bald boss grinned. Did you just come to Guangsheng City? The lord of the city has an order, and both parties involved in commercial activities in the city must have a resident registration certificate. Violators will be fined for minor offenses and detained for serious offenses. Brother, I am taking a risk to collect it for you. If you are not willing, then forget it. You can also go out and inquire to see if I have deceived you. After speaking, he pushed the gold bar back in front of Pei Yuansheng, as if he really didn't intend to accept it. Looking at this treacherous merchant's expression, Pei Yuansheng naturally couldn't stand him anymore. He walked out directly with a gold bar, while the bald shopkeeper joked behind him. Brother, if you can't find a suitable one, you can come back to me. Anyway, I'm at this price. Pei Yuansheng ignored him and then went to 2 gold shops and a pawn shop to inquire about the price. As a result, these few stores were just like the ones they had colluded with beforehand. At first, they all offered a price of over 199 grams, and then they asked him for a registration certificate. When they found out that he didn't have a registration certificate, they either refused to accept it or only offered more than 40, which angered Pei Yuansheng. After all, if we were to sell all these gold bars at their price, the money we would earn would probably not be enough to pay the city entrance fee. Then he found another gold shop, and this time he didn't say he didn't bring the registration certificate, but lied that he forgot to take it from home. Upon hearing these words, the shop owner sneered directly. Brother, haven't you obtained a registration certificate for your new arrival yet? To be honest, people in Guangsheng City can forget anything, but they will never forget to carry a registration certificate with them, let alone engage in gold trading. So, you should go wherever you come from. We don't accept your gold. Now Pei Yuansheng was completely disappointed. After coming out of the store, he didn't know for a moment whether he should return to his first gold shop. After all, it seems that the price of that bald head is the highest now. Oh my! At this moment, a teenage girl ran towards him and collided with him, then sat down on the ground. Pei Yuansheng, who had come to his senses, looked at the little girl and sighed. Didn't you get hurt, did you? Uncle, I'm fine. The little girl got up from the ground and ran away in a flash. Thinking that he was only 29 or less than 30 years old this year and had been called uncle by such a child, Pei Yuansheng couldn't help but give a bitter smile and instinctively touched his pocket. As a result, it didn't matter, and the smile on his face immediately solidified. My 3 gold bars are missing. Chapter 6. Gold bars stolen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The gold bar was stolen. Just now when I left the gold shop, I made sure to pack those 3 gold bars myself. And within less than 10 seconds of coming out of the gold shop, there was only one person who had contact with him during that time. Pei Yuansheng instantly reacted and turned to look at the little girl who had just bumped into him. At this moment, the little girl had arrived at a distance of about 10 meters from him. Seeing Pei Yuansheng suddenly turn around, the guilty little girl immediately realized that she had been exposed and ran away. Thief, don't run. Pei Yuansheng let out a loud roar and chased after him. The little girl is obviously very familiar with Guangsheng City, especially the terrain in this area. She turns left and right in the spacious roads and narrow alleys, intending to use the advantage of the terrain to get rid of Pei Yuansheng. Although Pei Yuansheng was not familiar with the terrain, he was not swayed by the little girl's agile movements due to his absolute physical advantage. Instead, he gradually narrowed the distance between the two sides. As he chased closer and closer, the little girl panicked and ran right into a crowded alley. After Pei Yuansheng followed in, he realized that it was a small alley similar to the old city market. On both sides of the alley were some street vendors selling various daily necessities and some self-grown vegetables and fruits. The crowded crowd in the middle of the alley were people who came to shop and take a walk, and the little girl squeezed back and forth in the crowd with her petite figure. The little girl is quite a thief. Pei Yuansheng snorted coldly and squeezed into the crowd. According to the little girl's imagination, facing the crowded crowd, Pei Yuansheng would inevitably not be able to catch up with her. Even if he could really squeeze in, when he arrived, he only needed to cry for help and the people around him would naturally help him stop him, and he would be able to escape. Compared to an adult male, people are more willing to believe in themselves as a delicate little girl. She breathed a sigh of relief and turned around to see where the other party had chased. But when she turned around, she found that Pei Yuansheng, who had been closely following her before, had disappeared. The little girl suddenly felt a sense of joy in her heart. Did I get rid of him? But before she could be happy, she accidentally looked up and scared her silly. I saw Pei Yuansheng, like a gibbon, with his arms alternating and grabbing the balconies on the second floor of the alley, quickly moving forward. In just the blink of an eye, he arrived above himself. As she was about to be caught, the little girl didn't have time to think much and ran away by running into the passers-by ahead. A series of shouts echoed in the alley. Oh my! Who hit my waist? Don't squeeze, please. Whose little devil, he doesn't have long eyes when he walks. What are you running in the alley? The little girl didn't pay attention to the shouts and curses of the people around her. She rushed out from the other end of the alley and ran towards the street at the entrance. Almost at the same time, Pei Yuansheng fell from the sky behind the little girl and reached out to grab her. But he was still a little short. The little girl ran out of the alley first and plunged into another alley across the street. Pei Yuanqing didn't care about this. After all, it was impossible for such a little girl to run out of his palm. Grasping her was just a piece of cake for him. So he followed closely and ran into the alley across the street. After turning a corner in the alley, Pei Yuanqing stopped in his tracks. This is a dead end. At the end of the alley is a nearly 3-meter-high wall, and the panting little girl is standing under the wall. She has nowhere to escape. Pei Yuanqing looked at her coldly. "Hand over my things." The little girl didn't speak, just silently looked at him. At the same time, a dense sound of footsteps came from behind. Pei Yuanqing turned around and saw 8 or 9.5-year-old children walking into the alley. There were both men and women, with the oldest looking 16 or 17 years old and the youngest being 12 or 13 years old. They were all holding sticks in their hands and looking at each other with ill intentions. It seems that Guangsheng City is not as beautiful as the legend suggests. The eldest boy, aged 16 or 17, looked fiercely at Pei Yuanqing. "If you don't want to die, get out of here quickly." Pei Yuanqing's face remained indifferent. "Give me my things back and I'll leave immediately." "I don't think you want to leave anymore." As soon as the boy finished speaking, the remaining people immediately surrounded him, and the little girl took the opportunity to come to the boy's side and handed him the 3 gold bars. Upon seeing the gold bar, the boy was noticeably surprised, followed by a sneer. "I can't tell, you're quite wealthy. Since that's the case, I advise you to leave quickly. As a wealthy person, your life is definitely not cheap. There's no need to lose your life for such a little money." Pei Yuanqing, who had lost patience, looked at him expressionlessly. "I'll say it one last time, give me the things and I'll leave. It seems that you don't understand human language, so I can only make you have a long memory." After speaking, the boy gave a glance to the others. "Give him a good lesson." The others glanced at each other and approached Pei Yuanqing. Half a minute later, Pei Yuanqing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked coldly at the people lying around him. Apart from him, only the boy who looked like the leader and the little girl who initially stole his gold bars were standing on the scene. However, at this moment, the two of them had already lost their original composure, and only deep fear remained in their eyes as they looked at Pei Yuanqing. "Can you return the gold bar to me now?" Pei Yuanqing's eyes turned and he looked at the two of them. With just one glance, the boy instinctively retreated, his body trembling uncontrollably, and a layer of cold sweat sprouted from his forehead. But even though he was so afraid, he still didn't forget to say to the little girl, "Yang Yang. Run quickly. Jie Gu. What will you do then?" The little girl was already frightened and at a loss, with tears swirling in her eyes. "Don't worry about me, run quickly. I'm fighting this monster." The boy picked up his baseball bat and threw it at Pei Yuanqing's head. As a result, Pei Yuanqing lifted his left hand and easily grabbed the opponent's bat, while his right hand grabbed his neck and lifted him up directly. The boy's cheeks suddenly turned red, and tears couldn't stop flowing down. Although fear told her to leave immediately, the little girl who saw this scene gritted her teeth and took out the 3 gold bars from the boy's pocket, kneeling down with a thud. "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I returned the gold bar to you, please let Jie go." Faced with the little girl's plea, Pei Yuanqing remained silent for 2 seconds. Finally, his hand relaxed and the boy fell to the ground, starting to cough violently. After confirming that it was his 3 gold bars, Pei Yuanqing picked them up and then looked up and down at the group of miners. Chapter 7. Government Affairs Center. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Faced with Pei Yuanqing's gaze, the trembling crowd dared not look up at him, fearing that a careless move would cause a fatal accident. Their past experiences have taught them that if they provoke someone they shouldn't in Guangsheng City, the ultimate outcome is likely to be a dead end. Therefore, even if the gold bars are returned to the other party, there is no guarantee that they will not die here. At this point, they can only pray that the man in front of them can show great mercy and spare their lives. I'll ask you a few questions and honestly answer, why do you guys do such things when your parents don't care about you? The boy on the ground said reluctantly. We are all orphans without parents. If we don't do this, we will starve to death. Do you have a resident registration certificate for Guangsheng City? Faced with this question, the boy hesitated for a moment, but looking at the expressionless Pei Yuansheng, he could only tell the truth. I am the only one among us who has it, and they haven't, mainly because their parents died early and haven't had a chance to handle it for them yet. Okay, could you help me with something? Once it's done, I'll let you go. Besides, there's a reward. How about that? The boy first rejoiced, then became wary. What do you want us to do? Pei Yuansheng raised the corner of his mouth and gave a meaningful smile. You'll know right away. An hour later, Pei Yuansheng walked out of a gold shop with the boy. At this moment, he had an extra backpack on his body, which was filled with Guanyuan exchanged for 3 gold bars. This is your reward. After counting out 500 yuan from the bag, Pei Yuansheng handed it over to the boy. Looking at the 500 yuan in his hand, the boy was stunned. What, too little? The boy shook his head slightly hesitantly. After wandering in Guangsheng City for many years, he has witnessed the dark corners here and also witnessed the ugly human nature. To put it simply, although this is Noah's Ark in the apocalypse, the law of the jungle is no different from outside. Here, the strong can bully people, while the weak can only be bullied. For them, the man in front of them is an absolute powerhouse. But not only did he not get into a big fight with them because of the previous incident, he just pointed it out and later only asked himself to help him sell those 3 gold bars and give him a reward. You and the people I have seen are different. Is that right? Pei Yuansheng didn't pay much attention. Since the transaction was over, he had nothing to do with these wandering children. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, the boy behind suddenly spoke up. My name is Song Jie, what's your name? Pei Yuansheng. After speaking, Pei Yuansheng disappeared into the street. With money, Pei Yuansheng has now fantasized about his beautiful life in the city in the future. Although he also realized from Song Jie's group of little ghosts that this city was not as perfect as rumored, as beautiful as heaven, he no longer had any extravagance for those who had been dealing with zombies in the apocalypse for many years. As long as he could eat 3 meals a day, have his own bed, and not worry about sleeping until midnight surrounded by zombies, he was already very satisfied. Sir, the Identity Bureau has arrived. The taxi driver parked the car on the side of the road and turned to him, saying. Pei Yuansheng took out a 100 yuan bill and handed it to the other party. The other party rummaged through the bag for a while and finally found him 90.5 yuan. After getting off the car, Pei Yuansheng looked up and found a towering building standing in front of him, which had at least 30 floors. Not only here, there are also many skyscrapers in the entire city of Guangsheng, which can be said to stand tall and soar into the sky. Perhaps due to the limited land area of this city, in order to accommodate as many people as possible and ensure living standards, such high-rise buildings can only be built. But it is obviously impossible to build such a building in the apocalypse, so it is only possible that it was built before the apocalypse. It seems that we need to find opportunities to learn more about the things here in the future. Thinking of this, he walked into the building in front of him. What business are you here to handle? 2 armed security guards at the entrance stopped him upon seeing the situation. I came to the Identity Bureau to apply for a resident registration certificate. New people entering the city. 2 security guards looked at him up and down, and then one of them took out his phone and clicked a few times. The Biochemical Epidemic Prevention Center has found information that you are Pei Yuansheng. That's right, it's me. Go in, the Identity Bureau is on the 2nd floor. After entering, he found that this was actually the government center of Guangsheng City. The official departments of the entire Guangsheng City were distributed on various floors of the building, and he even saw the office of the city lord on the information board. However, it was not easy to enter these places. Just in the lobby on the first floor, he saw more than 20 armed police officers armed with live ammunition guarding every person who entered and exited. He took the elevator and arrived at the second floor. At the moment he stepped out of the elevator, he once again felt a sense of confusion. Is this still the end of the world? Is this definitely not the world before the zombie crisis broke out? The second floor is the location of the Identity Bureau, and there are not many people handling business here at this time. A few staff members are sitting at their desks chatting and laughing, talking about what to eat for lunch and where to go after work in the afternoon. Are you here to handle the business? Seeing Pei Yuansheng coming over, a staff member asked him. Pei Yuansheng, who had regained his senses, nodded and walked across to sit down. The staff skillfully typed the keyboard a few times and then looked at it on the computer for a while. The Biochemical Epidemic Prevention Center just submitted your entry plan this morning. As long as you pay the entry fee, you can apply for a resident registration certificate. Have you brought the money with you? Pei Yuansheng took out 10,000 yuan from his bag. The other party carefully identified it, counted it correctly, and then collected Guangyuan. 10 minutes later, with a click, the resident registration certificate belonging to Pei Yuansheng was completed. Congratulations, from now on you will be a member of Guangsheng City. Perhaps you had a difficult time outside before, but now you can enjoy this beautiful life. As he spoke, the other party handed him the brand new resident registration certificate. Looking at this hard card that was similar to his previous ID card, Pei Yuansheng's mood couldn't help but feel a bit complicated. After calming down, he took out the previous flyer and looked at it. According to the steps written above, the next step is to find a job and earn money. After paying the city exit fee, I still have less than 3,000 yuan left on me. Although this money can help me live for a while, if I don't find a job soon to ensure my income, I'm sure I'll have to wander the streets one day. So he asked the staff about the job search. You can go to the job market on the 5th floor and take a look. There will be a large number of job opportunities available, and there may be one that suits you. Chapter 8. Finding Jobs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Got it, thank you very much. Pei Yuansheng turned around and took the elevator to the 5th floor. Compared to the sparsity of the Identity Bureau on the 2nd floor, Pei Yuansheng only realized after arriving at the job market on the 5th floor that it was overcrowded, with many people crowded in front of the window to inquire about job positions. It seems that no matter when, the difficulty of employment is always a problem facing everyone. After waiting for almost half an hour, he finally lined up at the window and quickly asked what work he had. The other party did not answer directly, but first gave him a form to fill out. After filling it out, the other party typed on the computer for a while. You have better conditions than them. There are 2 jobs I can recommend to you now, one is to join the City Defense Army, and the other is to join the police station. What exactly do the City Defense Army and police station do? What else can you do? Literally, the City Defense Army is responsible for eliminating zombies near Guangsheng City. After joining, you need to receive a period of training. After the training, you need to be on duty on the city walls around Guangsheng City. When encountering zombie groups near Guangsheng City, you may also go out to fight. The advantage of this job is high salary, but the disadvantage is that there is a certain level of risk. The police station is responsible for the security of Guangsheng City. In addition to patrolling, it is also responsible for cracking down on various criminal activities. This does not require training and can be employed after joining. Compared to the City Defense Army, the advantage of this job is that it is safer, but the disadvantage is that the salary is lower and it is also difficult. The other party briefly introduced these 2 jobs, but Pei Yuansheng was not very interested after listening. Is there any other job available? The staff rolled their eyes. Did you still choose to work? Do you know that the job positions in Guangsheng City are like a carrot and a pit? Not everyone in the city can find a job, and it depends on your various conditions to recommend these 2. If it's someone who is weak and sickly and wants to work, there won't be a chance. Consider it yourself. If you like to work, if you don't, just wait. After hesitating for a moment, he gritted his teeth as he saw that the other party had already spoken for this purpose. All right, I'll go to the police station. After surviving in the apocalypse for so many years, he had already grown tired of the daily life of dealing with zombies. After excluding the work of the city defense army, the only thing he could do was the police station. Seeing him make a choice, the staff quickly made a list. Take this form and report to the police station recently. The list states that the validity period is 1 week, and it also provides detailed records of the work situation at the police station, including salary. Does it start at 1,000 Guangyuan per month? Although the salary is not high, at least I will have a stable income in the future. Next, it's time to find a place to stay. After inquiring with the people around him, he found out that if he wanted to rent a house, he could go to the house center, which is located on the 10th floor of this building. Like the job market, it was also overcrowded here, and after waiting for another half hour, he finally arrived at the office window. The other party still gave him a form, requesting to fill in personal information and rental conditions. Considering that there was still some time before his salary could be paid, he chose a house with lower rent and located near the police station. Quickly, the other party provided 3 housing options according to his request. After comparison, he chose a small house with 1 bedroom, 1 living room, and a toilet, with an area of about 30 square meters. The monthly rent was 500 yuan. Seeing that he had made a choice, the staff sent him another ticket, which stated the specific location of the house and the landlord's contact information. Next, he only needed to contact the landlord to pay for the keys. But looking at the landlord's phone, Guangsheng realized a problem. I don't even have a phone to use in Guangsheng City. Not long after the zombie crisis broke out, phones from all over the world became scrap metal, and I had already thrown away these things. So he decided to buy a new phone, and after some inquiry, he found out that there was an officially authorized phone store nearby. Why, this phone is also sold by the official Guangsheng City. Looking at the puzzled expression on his face, the staff next to him said, "Don't you know that you just came to Guangsheng City? Ordinary phones are no longer usable in today's world. The phones used in Guangsheng City are all modified phones, and only our official Guangsheng City organization can do this. So the seller of mobile phones is also in this building. No, when you leave this building and head northwest, there is Guangming Road. The specialty store is on Guangming Road, and you will see it when you go there." After leaving the government building in Guangsheng City, Guangsheng found the mobile phone specialty store located on Guangming Road according to the address previously provided by the staff. There are many people in the mobile phone store. After all, this is the only place in Guangsheng City where mobile phones are sold, and living in Guangsheng City with mobile phones is also an essential tool. Fortunately, there are quite a few salespeople here, and Guangsheng didn't wait too long this time. He quickly went to the counter to buy a phone. All the phones sold here are models from the market before the zombie crisis broke out, and there are obvious signs of modification. The salesperson guessed his idea and smiled. "Sir, rest assured that all of our phones here are new and in used models, such as the Apple 20, which is the best-selling model in our store, priced at only 5,000 Guangyuan. 5,000. So expensive." Guangsheng couldn't help but furrow his brow. The purchase price for 1 gram of gold was only 90 yuan, and this phone was worth 1 or 2 gold dollars. After all, this is the best phone, and of course the price is not cheap. If you want a cheaper one, we also have it here. This M90 only costs 4,800 Guangyuan. I asked if you could stop recommending this kind of luxury machine to me. I can only spend a maximum of 1,000 yuan now. Can't you recommend 1,000 yuan machine to me? The smile on the salesperson's face disappeared, replaced by a cold and indifferent chill. The K90 over there is 13,000 yuan, which is the cheapest in our store. If you still find it expensive, I advise you not to buy it for now. Although the price is indeed not cheap, he didn't want to say anything more when he saw the other party's reaction. After completing the payment procedures, he opened his phone and dialed the landlord's number. Half an hour later, Guangsheng got out of the taxi, and now a tall building with over 20 floors appeared in front of him. According to the address on the list, he arrived at the 18th floor and found room 1805. Chapter 9. Practical Selection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After ringing the doorbell, a man quickly opened the door and welcomed him in. Are you Mr. Pei who came to see the house? It's me. Guangsheng didn't say much and carefully looked around. Mr. Pei, don't worry, my house is definitely not a problem. There is 1 bedroom, 1 living room, 1 kitchen, and 1 bathroom, and all kinds of household appliances are also available. Although the total area is only over 30 square meters, it is also a sparrow. Although it is small and dirty, it is really suitable for you to live alone. After confirming that there were no issues with the house, Guangsheng nodded. How will the rent be paid? Is it okay to deposit and pay one by one? Sure. Guangsheng took out 1,000 yuan from his bag and handed it to the landlord, who quickly took out the contract and completed the signing with him. Although he only had over 700 yuan left in his bag at this moment, he felt an indescribable sense of comfort at the thought of finally standing on the Noah's Ark in this apocalyptic world. He first went to the shop downstairs to buy some food, then took a shower when he returned. Finally, he came to the bedroom and suddenly lay on the soft big bed. After running all morning, he just wanted to have a good sleep. Guangsheng slept soundly this night and even had a dream. In his dream, he seemed to have returned to the peaceful days before the zombie crisis broke out, enjoying a happy life with his family, as if the end of the zombie had never happened. But no matter how beautiful the dream is, there will eventually be a moment to wake up. By the time he opens his eyes, the sky outside the window has already darkened, and the watch on the wall has arrived at 7 p.m. After coming to the kitchen and cooking a bowl of noodle soup for himself, he carried the bowl to the living room and took out his phone to carefully read while eating noodles. I thought such a smartphone would have many functions, but when I opened it, he was dumbfounded. This phone can only make calls and send text messages, it can't even connect to the internet. Although there are indeed many functions of smartphones above, the problem is that these functions are only available through the network. Before the zombie crisis broke out, mobile networks may have been as ubiquitous as the air, it was nothing but ordinary. But in this post-apocalypse, there is no internet at all. Guangsheng, who felt like he had been deceived, immediately regretted it. After all, if he only made phone calls and sent text messages, he might as well buy an elderly phone. But on second thought, he realized something again. Although there is no internet, there must be a local area network in Guangsheng City. Otherwise, how can those staff in the Government Affairs Center building use computers today? However, such a local area network is likely only provided to a small number of people in Guangsheng City, so once you enter the police station to work, you may be able to connect to the local area network with your phone. The next day, Guangsheng got up early. After breakfast, he went out to report to the police station. When he was looking for a house before, he specifically looked for someone close to the police station, so after walking for 10 minutes, he arrived at the police station in Guangsheng City. The police station is the only department in Guangsheng City responsible for maintaining public order and combating crime, so its scale is naturally extraordinary. There are a total of 3 buildings within the 3-meter-high wall of the police station, and the courtyard downstairs is filled with various police cars. When Guangsheng came in, he even counted at least 50 cars. It seems that the entire police station should have over 1,000 personnel. As he was about to enter the front building, a police officer at the entrance stopped him. "What's up?" "I'll report." Guangsheng took out the previous ticket and said. The other party glanced at the list and raised their hand to another building. The newcomer reports to room 106 on the first floor over there. After entering the building, I searched for Pei Yuansheng and arrived at the door of room 106. I raised my hand and knocked on the door. Come on in. There are both men and women in the office, and there are several black and white Western-style holes. Before he could speak, a white female police officer at his desk spoke in fluent Chinese. Are you the newcomer who came to report? Pei Yuansheng handed over the order to the other party. The other party glanced and stood up, saying, Come with me. After following her out of the office, Pei Yuansheng asked, Are we going to collect uniforms? The other party turned around and glanced at him. It's a long time ago, now you have to participate in the practical selection. Only by passing the selection can you become a formal police officer in Guangsheng City. Do you still need to participate in the selection? Pei Yuansheng was taken aback. I was in the job market and the other party said my qualifications met the requirements, so they asked me to come and report today. The white female police officer shrugged. The job market belongs to the first round of rough interviews, and only those who meet the conditions can come to the police station to participate in the second round of practical selection. In the post-apocalyptic era, people's hearts are not as good as before, and even in this Guangsheng City, there are inevitably villains who take risks and commit crimes for their own interests. If there is not enough force to join the police station, it is equivalent to seeking their own death. The other party's words were reasonable, so Pei Yuansheng didn't say anything more and obediently followed the other party to the two front doors. As soon as the white policewoman pushed open the door, a mournful scream came from inside. Ah! Pei Yuansheng took a closer look and found that this was a spacious training hall. There were many people standing around the hall, and in the center of the hall, which was covered in sponge cushions, a tall and sturdy man was lying on the ground with a painful expression and howling. A man who was one head shorter than him stood beside him, expressionlessly stepping on his twisted arm behind him. It's a mediocre person again. Although this guy is short and thin, even smaller than a strong man on the ground, Pei Yuansheng can tell at a glance that he is not an ordinary person. Both his movements and demeanor, as well as his physique and aura, are far beyond the comparison of that strong man on the ground. This is a skilled and experienced expert. Just as Pei Yuansheng was making a secret judgment, the white female police officer spoke up. Instructor Wu, another newcomer has arrived. Instructor Wu looked back and said, Thank you very much, Mary. The white policewoman smiled and said, Compared to you, Instructor Wu, we don't work hard at all. At this moment, Instructor Wu looked at Pei Yuansheng again. You wait here first, there are still 6 more and it's your turn. Halfway through, Instructor Wu suddenly raised his hand and clenched his fist, aiming to strike behind him. The strong man gritted his teeth and got up from the ground, ready to ambush him. He was directly hit by this punch on the bridge of his nose, and his nose was like a twisted faucet, bleeding like a spring. Chapter 10. Who are you? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The strong man twisted his facial features and fell to the ground, unable to move anymore. Instructor Wu turned around and said coldly, This guy is not qualified. The 2 qualified ones just sent him to the medical room. 2 men walked around and helped the strong man up and out of the training hall. Although these 2 individuals passed the test, they were both bruised, indicating that they had suffered a lot in the hands of this martial arts instructor just now. Instructor Wu glanced at Pei Yuansheng and said, Since a newcomer has arrived, let me reiterate the rules. My requirements are very simple. I don't need you to be able to knock me down, but you just need to be able to hold on for 1 minute in the middle of this training hall after the showdown starts, which is considered qualified. Being knocked down by me or leaving this field is considered a failure. Have you heard me clearly? The scene was completely silent. For everyone present, when they first heard this request, they didn't take it seriously, and even felt relieved. After all, In their eyes, such a small person is not their opponent at all. Not to mention persisting for a minute without falling to the ground, even if it is to knock him down, it is not a problem. After all, almost everyone who came to participate in the selection was taller and stronger than him. But after witnessing the actual combat of the first few people, they were sweating profusely and couldn't laugh anymore. This martial arts instructor's strength exceeded all their imagination. This guy not only has extraordinary strength, but also has a speed that is dazzling, and his moves are constantly changing during battles, making it completely impossible for people to cope. Most of the people who passed before chose to squat on the ground, hold their heads, and be beaten until they had to bear it for a minute. Everyone couldn't help but think of the famous quote from Sun Tzu's Art of War. Its illness is like the wind, its slowness is like a forest, it invades like fire, remains motionless like a mountain, is difficult to know like Yin, and moves like lightning. Now it seems that this sentence is perfectly appropriate to describe this martial arts instructor. The selection is still ongoing, and with the experience and lessons learned from the previous few, the remaining few are ready. But in the end, their outcome was not at all uncertain, and they were still easily defeated by the martial arts instructor. 2 people chose to squat on the ground with their heads in their arms like the previous ones, preparing to fight hard for a minute. However, Instructor Wu kicked one of them out of the field with just one kick, failing on the spot. Although the other person was not kicked out, he lost his balance and fell to the ground after being kicked, which was also a failure according to the rules. Seeing that there was little hope of being beaten passively, the next 3 people chose to take the initiative again and prepared to take on 2 moves with the martial instructor from the beginning. But in the face of an absolute power gap, such a choice is obviously meaningless. The martial instructor, with his lightning-fast speed, directly killed them in front of them. One person was knocked down by a punch, the other was knocked down by an over-shoulder fall, and the last person suffered even more. He struck him with a knife in the neck and fainted on the spot. And the person with the greatest hope is still the one in front of Pei Yuansheng. This guy is obviously also a trainee, and after the battle with the martial arts instructor began, both sides fought back and forth, evenly matched. Just when everyone thought this guy had a chance of success, the martial instructor suddenly made a feint move to attack his lower plate. After the opponent was hit, he immediately resisted with both hands downwards. As a result, the martial instructor seized the opportunity and hit the opponent's forehead with a head hammer. I don't know if this martial arts instructor had practiced iron head skill before, but when he hit the person, he immediately felt dizzy and stumbling. The martial arts instructor seized the opportunity and kicked him to the ground with a flying kick. However, only 50 seconds had passed, and it was obvious that he had not succeeded. Seeing such a powerful person ultimately defeated, everyone sighed with regret for his failure. More importantly, even such a powerful person has failed, how could they possibly be qualified? At this moment, Instructor Wu looked at Pei Yuansheng, and it was his turn next. Come here and quickly finish today's selection. I have other things to do. When he said this, Instructor Wu had a proud expression on his face, obviously not taking Pei Yuansheng seriously, thinking that he was no different from the previous few people. Not only him, but also the others present had little hope for him, believing that he would suffer a disastrous defeat at the hands of Instructor Wu like them. Several unsuccessful job seekers turned around and prepared to leave, feeling dejected. Only the white policewoman Mary remained leaning against the wall, looking excitedly over here. It's not that she has any confidence in Pei Yuansheng, but rather that she naturally enjoys watching the excitement and wants to see how Pei Yuansheng will suffer a disastrous defeat. In this way, when everyone believed that there would be no suspense in this match and no one had hope for him, Pei Yuansheng walked into the field and came across from the martial instructor. He then pressed down with his left palm, clenched his right fist and raised it, with his left leg forward and his right leg backward, and put himself in a combat posture. Instructor Wu didn't pay much attention to this and directly spoke up. Let's get started. With his command, Pei Yuansheng immediately rushed towards him. Seeing this situation, Instructor Wu raised his lips and gave a disdainful sneer. After witnessing the situation just now, this kid chose to attack recklessly. It seems that he is just like that, but his smile stopped abruptly before it lasted for 2 seconds. In the blink of an eye, Pei Yuansheng, who was originally 2 meters away from him, stood almost face to face in front of him. So fast. Instructor Wu was greatly surprised in his heart. Without waiting for him to react again, Pei Yuansheng took a left and right swipe, raised his knees, and struck left forward with his left palm. The speed of this blow was extremely fast, and the people around even heard a sharp sound of breaking through the air. And Instructor Wu dared not be careless, almost instinctively blocking Pei Yuansheng's palm strike with both hands forward. Although it blocked Pei Yuansheng's attack, Wu Instructor's arm suddenly hurt. At this moment, Pei Yuansheng's attack hit again, and he saw his right leg sweep forward, his right palm bend and thrust backwards, while attacking his upper and lower plates. Instructor Wu was surprised again. Without much time to think, he could only dodge backwards. Pei Yuansheng's palm almost brushed against his nose, and he suddenly felt a cold wind brushing his face. Others around him may not realize how dangerous this strike was, but he is well aware of the consequences of not dodging and being hit by this move in time. So he looked at Pei Yuansheng meaningfully. Qinglong's claws pick up Longnu's mirror. Black Dragon's 18 hands. Who the hell are you?